Another month of madness. Welcome to part 3 of my modern desk build, where I attempt to create a few accessories to complete the set with plenty of obstacles along the way.
My boss is gonna fire me.
I had such an incredible list of accessories I was going to make for this desk. We had a trash can, a clock, desk protector, stapler, tape dispenser, wallet, phone case, a watch, and the list goes on. I did not even come close. In this episode, I got to the trash can, the clock, and a desk organizer. Now, before you judge, some chaos went down this month, okay? I had a few side projects for some customers I could not postpone any longer. Additionally, there were some opportunities to help a few people out. Call me soft, but I can't say no. This time was no exception. So now that that's cleared up, perhaps you won't judge me so harshly. Besides, I had to discipline myself with some 04 reveilles this week anyways. No pain, no gain. So the theme of the desk I built in March and the chair I built for it in April was modern. Modern isn't really my style, but my wife told me something I will never ever forget. She used to manage shoe stores in Finland, and she said one of the greatest lessons she ever learned was that it's not about what you like, it's about what the customer likes. That has stuck to me to this day in regards to the retail experience. Now, as I said, modern, not so much my style, but the Western world and the world at large, for the most part, is heavily gravitating to modern design. So I had to adapt, and I figured why not swing for the fences? It was enormously challenging, but I sure am happy I did it. And I think for a first attempt, it came out all right. The assembly of the trash can was pretty straightforward. I purchased a pretty decent amount of walnut for the desk a couple months ago. After construction of the desk and the chair, I was left with only scraps for accessories. I had to make do with what I had, as I did not want to make another purchase nor let all these scraps go to waste. We begin with joining and planing the scraps to get some nice, clean, right angles. Once complete, I arrange the pieces as I see fit in order to glue them together. We lather up both contact edges so that no area goes unglued. Before tightening, just enough to prevent movement. I prefer to use these baby wipes on one side of the project to maintain a flat surface so that I can plane the other side once the glue dries. After years of self-inflicted pain, one learns to work smarter, not harder. Who likes a trashy trash can? Am I right? After all that glue is dried up, we start sanding down any mismatched edges and excess glue to get that nice, clean, meticulous surface. At this point, I was debating heavily on the design. I went back and forth between straight edges and rounded edges, but ultimately decided on something in between, as you'll see momentarily. I just recently started using the rounding bit, and I fell in love with the end result. However, there are some corners that don't always call for it. Sometimes that straight edge looks really sharp, not to mention it may add extra stability in regards to function. So I was struggling a little bit with the trash can design, more with rounded edges versus straight edges. I decided to go with rounded edges because that's more the theme of the desk, as you can see here. The only exception is the bottom of the trash can. I decided to go straight edge. As we continue to play Tetris with the various tools in my one-car garage, have I ever told you I love using Pure Tung Oil? If you've seen any of my episodes before, you've heard me say this countless times. It is such a challenging endeavor, but one of the things I've picked up over the years is the finer you sand the wood, the easier it is to create that smooth polymerization result on the surface. In order to get that glossy finish, you have to repeat the process at least 3 times. With the accessories, I don't nearly have enough time to work up to that glossy finish, not to mention it wouldn't match the matte finish of the desk and the chair. I have had people comment on my Marini Furniture Shorts channel, you don't need to sand that fine, etc., but with Pure Tung Oil, I've found it absolutely necessary when it comes to flash polymerization. So if you're interested in that traditional style, keep that in mind. All right, let's break up the monotony before you fall asleep to my monotone voice. So one of the gentlemen I work with explained to me that he was really struggling removing a few trees from the front of his house. He had a relatively basic chainsaw, but it just wasn't cutting it. Get it? Never fear, beast is here, the Husqvarna 3120 XP. Oh yeah. I didn't have a shorter bar, so I had to overcompensate with the 36 inch. Fortunately, we were able to get all 3 down without much issue. When Beast gets thirsty, let him drink. I had burned through the remainder of my fuel and chain oil, so I had to make a couple pit stops before milling these puppies down. Now, these desert oak trees are no regular oak trees. I'd love to get a Jenga test done on some of the woods out here. I don't know if it's the minerals, the elevation, the heat, or what, but the wood we get out here seems quite a bit denser to me, but maybe it's just my imagination.
Okay, so my chainsaw millimetered about a little less than a foot over the course of 5 minutes. This oak is a little harder than I thought. So, because I'm tired and I don't have the time to mill this over the course of probably 2 days, and the cost of fuel and maintenance and bar oil, I think I'm just gonna have to take a different route, which may call for a new tool. So, can't complain too much, right? Here we go.
So, Marines are not formally taught to retreat. There is only advancing backwards. Oh, the weather outside is weather. Paul Rudd, forgetting Sarah Marshall? Anybody? The random climate honestly makes life ever so entertaining out here. My wife will probably put a tariff on me for getting my son a digital clock, but I felt like the classical hour-minute hand clock just wasn't going to look right on a modern desk. I could probably have found a way to make it work, but this one particularly caught my eye. It resembled an iPhone, and I thought it was a pretty clean and modern design. It was something I could work with. The only thing I overlooked is the fact that it is not battery operated. It has a battery as advertised, but it's one of those backup batteries for when the power goes out and you're too lazy to reset the time. You know, that one. So unfortunately, I had to work with what I got. I wanted to shape a pocket into some walnut and slide this guy right in there. I felt that would be the most appropriate design for the set, and honestly, it would look really unique. CNC is more than sweet slow-mo and time-lapse shots. This clock, as you'll see later, is another one of those reasons I really have come to appreciate the long road to becoming a CNC tech, at least as I refer to myself as one. This has allowed me to step up my design game and, long story short, essentially prototype, which has enabled the creation of some really incredible work. Okay, so the clock frame didn't exactly come out the way I wanted it to. It came out a little bit thinner and it feels a little bit flimsier than I expected it to. And even though I don't have the luxury of time right now, I think I'm gonna reattack this anyways. Here we go. You remember those scraps I was talking about? Okay, so I had to cheat, kind of. I had a bunch of leftover walnut cheese boards that nobody wanted to buy from my Etsy store, so I had to use one of those. Don't hate the player, hate the game. As I previously stated, I didn't like the way the first prototype came out. The result was too flimsy, it was too light, it just felt and looked cheap. From my perspective, the best way to combat this is by adding some dimension, some girth. So we glued two of these cheese boards together for girth, and we played with some dimensions on the CNC so that this frame will maintain some weight. Oh, don't worry, I have more CNC this episode. As you can see here, things are looking pretty good. The frame came out better than expected, so we rounded off the edges before adding some ports with the drill. Speaking of CNC, these holes are a little bit of a challenge to line up, so I am thinking about modifying my CNC a bit so that I can have more Z-axis access. That's hard to say, and yes, those are two different words. Furthermore, I'm considering building that into a new bench design, as mine is in desperate need of replacement. So stand by for that. Not sure when I'll build that into my schedule, as I can barely finish these accessories on time, but I digress. This is one of my favorite parts of the clock, the addition of the walnut snooze button. I originally put my diameter dimensions in the radius measurement of my software, which called for a redo, but everything worked out all right. The setting buttons were too small to work this time, and I intended on grinding down some gold screws instead, but time got the best of me this round. I had to shell out 4 of these marble boards for a few customers I could not postpone any longer. This one here is by far the coolest one I have ever made. The customer has a significant amount of Aztec heritage and asked if I could engrave an Aztec god in the middle of the marble board. I was a little concerned about the level of detail and array of colors, but these acrylic pens I found worked wonders and made the project possible. Marbles has become a very loud and obnoxious phenomena down here in the fire service and is admittedly quite addicting. A little custom design honestly makes the game that much more entertaining, so I was more than happy to oblige.
One of my buddies hit me up and asked if I had some scrap slabs laying around, and Lord knows I do, so that he can build a little coffee table for his house. So let's see what we got. I think there's a good chance we can find something good. Honestly, I am probably not going to be able to use all this, especially anytime soon. This one is catching my eye over here because it's perfect for epoxy. All right, the chainsaw mill was a little bit of a mess. The wood wasn't quite stable enough to handle that. We migrated over to the bandsaw. We were able to get that completed, and then we were able to router sled this down successfully to 2 3/4 inches, which is just short of his mold dimensions, which is 3 inches thick. So we gave him a 1/4 inch there to work with. The next thing we need to work on is the length and width for his mold, and we should be good to go.
All joking aside, I often forget how fortunate I am. We recently upgraded the size of our bed and we were prepping to sell an old one in great condition. As I was prepping the listing, my wife said, just give it away. I couldn't have agreed more, and we listed it for free. Within 30 minutes, I must have had 100 responses. I was able to sift through the pile of messages to find a mother of 3 in need. It was a very humbling experience. I don't know exactly where this channel will go, but man, I never want to forget people. Move box, dang. I was able to find some really great office supplies that matched the theme of our trilogy set. We got a stapler, staple remover, tape dispenser, paperclip tray, scissors, pens, and more. Now, what I originally intended with my overambitious plan was to use the gold trim from these to be used with walnut leather designs, but I have been humbled in more than one way this month. So as I simmer down, I am starting to conceptualize layouts of how I want this desk organizer to present. So you guessed it, we head back over to the CNC to input our various measurements. Calipers and CNC go hand in hand. My CNC can increment down to the hundredths of an inch, give or take. So to have a digital measurement, hence the calipers, makes a world of difference. This attains those accurate measurements, which I can then input into the software to get as accurate as possible. Now there is experience that comes into play too though. For example, with an arrangement like this, I actually don't want to match the exact dimensions of the stapler, for instance. I want a few hundredths of an inch on each side so that I can ease in and out without any issue. At least that is what an elite CNC tech would do, which I happen to forget to do, which is why I had to perform a rapid redo, as you'll see here soon enough. This prototype took quite the beating, so quite a few things went wrong with this guy. As I previously stated, I forgot to offset by a few hundredths of an inch, so a lot of the supplies did not fit as intended in their allotted placement. This wasn't a huge deal regarding the software, but I did not have a replacement walnut this time to compensate for my negligence. Something else I forgot to take into consideration was the dimensioning of the desk. The mistake I made actually made this prototype better, which you will see later. The error I made gave me a chance to redesign the layout so that the organizer would fit in the corner of the desk without occupying too much real estate. Ideally, this would be in a drawer, which I also did not have time to finish. I don't know how you all are with your kitchen countertops or bench tops, but I like a nice and orderly surface. I don't want to have to move things when I'm working or cleaning. In this case, as I said, it would have been more ideal to have the organizer in a drawer, but because my life is chaos, we were at least able to design efficiently into a corner of the desk to free up that workspace. All right, making progress. Let's go. So this is where that miscalculation turns into a blessing in disguise. I ran out of walnut and I had all of these pockets from the bad side. So in order to adapt and overcome, I decided to simply plane it off to see what we had left. We maybe lost 1/4 of an inch in the planing process, but I still had enough girth to round the edges. And honestly, after holding the nearly finished product in hand, I felt like the thickness could not have been more appropriate. Any more thickness, I think it would have been a little too much of an eyesore. This way it looks sleek, intentional, and efficient. So all we have left to do at this point is to sand them down to get a nice smooth result. Those rounded edges just look fantastic on walnut. It's a great style. Of course, before I get too excited, we reassess the current state of the organizer to ensure we do indeed have accurate dimensions for the office supplies, which in this case, it looks like we have a winner. These fit in there quite nicely, and I'm really liking the way this is coming out, considering the circumstances. After some final touches with some fine sanding, we go ahead and vacuum the accessories down before giving them that rich, pure tung oil finish. Pure tung oil on walnut enriches that natural color of the wood like nobody's business. So we get ourselves a nice new towel to apply the oil and apply it in copious amounts. This way the oil saturates the walnut. The more it is saturated, the more it will protect the surface once the oil polymerizes. Because we will be letting the oil polymerize naturally, we will need to keep the various accessories dry for the next month. Now that is a trash can. That straight edge on the bottom came out so sharp. My favorite part of the clock is that snooze button. It makes the clock so, I can't help but think of another word other than earthy. I love it. The desk organizer ended up fitting quite nicely in the corner of that desk. Overall, considering the various and unexpected side quests that accompanied my efforts this month, I could not have been happier with the way things turned out. If you have enjoyed the party, please subscribe. There will be more content out on the first of each month. Thanks for joining me, you all. Take care.